Do you consider yourself a kind, calm person who could never hurt anyone? Do you take pride in your empathy, patience, and ability to avoid conflict? But what if I told you that this image of kindness and self-control could be just an illusion? A dangerous illusion, in fact. Inside, each one of us exists a dark, primal side. It's there, even if we pretend it's not. This was referred to as the shadow by Carl Jung, and it's not just a metaphor. It's a real part of us, and the more we ignore it, the more power it gains over us. Have you ever lashed out over something small or said something cruel that doesn't align with who you think you are? Have you ever judged someone harshly without really knowing why? Have you ever sabotaged your own happiness, pushed away those who loved you, or made decisions that you later couldn't explain? If so, pay close attention. Maybe it wasn't really you. It was the part of you that you're pretending doesn't exist, the part you've buried deep within your mind, the part you hide even from yourself. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is where the trap lies. We think we're the author of our own story, but in reality we're being guided by forces we don't fully understand. Your shadow, suppressed and neglected, starts taking control, and its outcomes can be devastating. This video is not a philosophical debate or an abstract theory. It's a mirror, a call, a direct conversation with you. Have you ever felt like something inside you is spiraling out of control? Have you ever been suffocated by thoughts you dare not confess? Have you ever wondered why you keep repeating the same mistakes, the same reactions, the same destructive patterns? Today, we'll confront this shadow. We'll bravely examine it, understand how it's born, why it grows, and what happens when you ignore it. More importantly, we will learn how to confront it before it's too late. If you don't confront your shadow, it will find a way to destroy you. You won't even realize it was doing the damage. You will blame the world, people, fate. But the truth is, the enemy has always been within. Are you ready to confront your darkest self? To understand what the shadow is and why it has so much power over you? We need to trace back to the beginning. Not just the beginning of your adult life or adolescence, but to your childhood. Because it's in those early years that your shadow starts to form. Imagine you are a child full of natural impulses. You cry when you're frustrated, scream when you're angry, laugh out loud. You are spontaneous, wild, authentic. But gradually, the adults around you start to curb this behavior. Boys don't cry. Good girls don't scream. Don't speak loudly. Swallow your tears. Behaved. And you learn. You learn that certain feelings are unacceptable. You learn that showing anger is wrong, that being too desirous is selfish, that thinking differently is problematic. So what do? You start to hide those parts of yourself. You bury your anger. You pretend you're not envious. You suppress desire. You disguise pain with polite smiles. And so, piece by piece, you build a persona, a socially acceptable character. The image of the good boy, the good daughter, the exemplary employee, the loving partner. But while you shape this image, something else is being built in silence, deep within your mind. Something you don't want to see, something you don't want to admit exists. The shadow. For Carl Jung, the shadow is made up of everything you have rejected about yourself. Not just your flaws, but also your choked potentials, your valid anger, your creative ambition, your sexuality, your courage, your aggression, your raw authenticity. Everything that didn't fit into the mold you were forced to wear was cast into the basement of the psyche, and it stayed there, waiting. But here's the crucial point. The shadow doesn't disappear because you ignore it. In fact, the opposite is true. The more you repress it, the stronger it becomes. And worse, it starts to manifest behind the scenes in your uncontrollable impulses, in your exaggerated reactions, in your judgments, in your relationships, in the inner voice that sabotages you. The shadow is like a hungry beast locked away, and you think it's under control until the door can't hold it anymore. Jung understood something that few dare to accept. We are not just what we show the world. We are above all what we hide from ourselves. The shadow is not just a repository of bad things. It is the most human, real, instinctive part of who you are. Denying it is denying yourself, and that's why it always finds a way to make a comeback. And when it does, when it finally finds a crack, you don't recognize the person you see in the mirror. That's when the behaviors you classify as mistakes happen, the words you utter and regret, the actions you swear you'll never repeat. But you do because it's not you who is in control. It's the shadow guiding your steps, and you keep calling it destiny. But what if the shadow wasn't just a silent threat? What if it could morph into something much worse, given the right conditions? Next, we'll explore how the shadow can evolve into sheer cruelty, and how this explains why seemingly good people can commit horrific acts. If this content is resonating with you, hit the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Your support is appreciated. Do you believe that some people are inherently evil, born inclined towards malevolence, while others are fundamentally good? This belief is comforting. It allows us to separate ourselves from the monster, from the criminal, from those who cross all moral lines. But this separation is an illusion. A psychologist named Philip Zimbardo shattered this illusion with one of the most controversial experiments in the history of modern psychology, known as the Stanford Prison Experiment. In 1971, Zimbardo selected ordinary college students with no criminal backgrounds who were psychologically healthy. They were divided into two groups, guards and prisoners, to simulate a prison environment. What unfolded in just 6 days within that basement at Stanford University was horrifying. The guards, young men who were kind, intelligent, and educated, began psychologically abusing the prisoners. They shouted at them, humiliated them, deprived them of sleep, and imposed physical and moral punishments. The prisoners, in turn, began to emotionally crumble. They cried, begged to be released. The experiment, which was supposed to last 2 weeks, had to be cut short in less than 1. What Zimbardo discovered was this: evil is not a personality trait. Evil is a possibility within all of us. And when the right conditions are established, such as absolute power, anonymity, and an absence of consequences, the shadow finds the space to manifest without any disguises. These young men didn't become cruel because they were evil. They became cruel because their shadow was finally given a chance to surface. The persona crumbled, and what was left was the suppressed part. Wild, brutal, and dehumanizing. This is what Zimbardo called the Lucifer effect, the transformation of an angel into a demon. This transformation doesn't happen all at once. It starts with small transgressions, a spiteful comment, a humiliation disguised as a joke, an abuse of power justified with rationalizations. When you're not aware of your shadow, it finds ways, and these ways can lead you to places you never imagined. Carl Jung and Philip Zimbardo never worked together, but their ideas intersect with chilling precision. Jung talked about repression creating internal monsters. Zimbardo showed what happens when the environment allows those monsters to escape their cage. Together, they paint a complete picture of human evil. It's not out there, it's inside, and it just needs a crack to dominate. But you might be wondering, okay, I understand the concept, but how can I tell if my shadow is already in action? How can I spot the signs before it's too late? In the next part, we'll clearly identify the most common symptoms of those who are being dominated by their shadow without realizing it. And perhaps you will recognize yourself more than you would like. You don't need to commit atrocities to be dominated by your shadow. It rarely reveals itself in an obvious way. The shadow doesn't shout, it whispers. That's precisely why it's so dangerous. It works in silence, in the subtext, concealed beneath justifications. It camouflages itself in behaviors that you label as my way, my personality, my temperament. But the truth is, if you look closely, you'll see it's not you who's in control. Want a simple example? Consider that disproportionate irritation towards someone who thinks differently from you. That automatic disdain for more confident, bolder, freer people. The cruel judgment you dispense in your mind when you see someone either standing out or failing. These feelings don't just come out of nowhere. They're reflections, projections. As Jung explained, what irritates us in others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. In other words, what bothers you most in others is almost always something you have suppressed in yourself. Another clear symptom is self-sabotage. Have you ever been close to achieving something great? A relationship, a project, a significant change, and then, without realizing it, destroyed everything? Procrastinated when you shouldn't have? Said something you didn't need to? Created unnecessary conflict? The shadow works like this. It doesn't want you to evolve because growth requires confronting oneself. It prefers to keep you in what is familiar, even if it is destructive. It feeds on your stagnation. And what about uncontrollable emotions? Have you ever felt a hatred that makes no sense? A jealousy that seems irrational? An envy that you try to mask with criticism? These extreme emotional states are direct manifestations of the shadow. They are parts of you that have been denied, suppressed, and are now screaming for attention in the worst possible way by hijacking control of your life without you realizing it. The shadow also reveals itself in the masks you wear. When you try too hard to appear good, correct, spiritualized, peaceful, be careful. Excessive virtue may just be an unconscious defense against the impulses you fear most in yourself. That person who prides themselves on their patience may be hiding immense anger. Those who claim to be too detached may just be running away from their own neediness. The shadow is not just what is ugly. It is what is true, but has not been accepted. It's a hard truth that the more you define yourself solely by the light, the more you will be controlled by the darkness. Because everything you don't integrate will possess you. Now that you've started identifying these signs, the most troubling question arises. What if this image of a good person you have constructed is just a way to keep your shadow locked away? Let's break the biggest illusion of all, that you are essentially good, and reveal the truth that no one wants to hear. You're not as good as you think, and everything you fear most still exists within you. Do you consider yourself a good person? And maybe you really believe that. After all, you don't hurt anyone on purpose. You strive to be kind. You want to do the right thing. But what if I told you that this kindness is a construct, a social veneer, an armor you created to avoid facing the most brutal parts of yourself? Society taught you that being good means not feeling anger, not wanting too much, not being selfish. But feelings don't disappear because you deny them. They simply retreat to the basement of your consciousness. And there they transform into something darker, more corrosive, more dangerous. You haven't stopped feeling envy. You've just learned to call it a critical opinion. You haven't stopped wanting power. You've just learned to disguise it as a desire to make a difference. Your kindness may just be the domesticated version of your shadow. Carl Jung said that enlightenment doesn't happen by imagining things of light, but by making the inner darkness conscious. This is where many stumble because they don't want to see their own darkness. They want to maintain the illusion that they are pure, just, morally superior. But this pride is in itself an expression of the shadow because it hides something fundamental. The fear of not being good enough. The terror of discovering that within you exists cruelty, selfishness, arrogance, contempt. You think you are kind, but maybe you are just passive-aggressive. You think you are humble, but you can't stand it when someone receives more recognition than you. You say you don't care about status, but you feel diminished when you see someone more successful. This doesn't make you a monster. It makes you human. And that's exactly the point. The more you deny your humanity, the more the shadow takes control. True kindness doesn't come from denying the evil within you. It comes from facing it head-on, recognizing it, and consciously deciding not to act from it. This is psychic maturity. This is integration. The rest is fantasy, emotional immaturity. And immaturity, when repressed for too long, leads to destruction, either internally or externally. Do you really want to know who you are? Look at what embarrasses you, at what you judge in others, at the thoughts you try to silence. Because it is there, right there, that the most real part of you exists. But what now? If the shadow is inevitable and already in action, what do you do? How do you prevent it from continuing to sabotage your life, your relationships, your future? You'll discover that the shadow doesn't have to be your enemy. There's a way, a deep, brutal, and liberating process called shadow work. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebook Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to understand yourself more deeply. The link is in the pinned comment. By now you have understood that ignoring your shadow is a recipe for destruction. But here's something almost no one tells you. Your shadow doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be seen, heard, integrated. And by ignoring it, by pretending it doesn't exist, it ends up possessing you. Carl Jung called this process integration, and it's neither simple nor comfortable. It requires courage. It requires diving into the darkest corners of your psyche and accepting what you fear most about yourself. Not to surrender to it, but to transform that repressed content into strength, awareness, and freedom. This process is known as shadow work, and it begins with a brutally honest question. What in me do I not want to admit exists? This is the point where you need to stop lying to yourself. You need to acknowledge your darkest impulses without judgment, without moralizing, without self-pity. Do you feel envy? Acknowledge it. Do you take pleasure in seeing someone who humiliated you fail? Accept it. Have you ever wished to hurt someone with words or actions? Admit it, because what you don't admit to dominates you. But what you face, you transform. One of the most powerful tools for this is the shadow journal. Grab a pen and paper or open a blank file and write. Write without filters, without censorship. Give voice to the thoughts you would never dare to say out loud. Let out everything you hide, even from yourself. Yes, it would be uncomfortable. Yes, you would be scared by what you find. But it's this discomfort that liberates you, because the shadow doesn't want to be buried. It wants to be recognized. Another essential practice is to observe your emotional triggers. Who irritates you? Who do you judge? What throws you off balance? These reactions reveal the parts of you that have not yet been integrated. What you project onto others is, in fact, an unconscious attempt to expel something that exists within you. The shadow reveals itself more in what you condemn in others than in what you confess about yourself. Finally, learn to dialogue with your shadow. Don't fight it. Don't try to eliminate it. Tell it, I see you. I hear you. You are part of me, but you do not control my life. This simple attitude of embracing without submitting changes everything, because it transforms fear into awareness, anger into power, insecurity into clarity. Shadow work is not a quick self-help technique. It is an existential journey. It's like crossing the fire of your own truth and emerging on the other side as a whole, more authentic, more free, more complete person. Because true strength doesn't come from denying who you are. It comes from mastering what is within you, especially that which scares you. But even with all this, there's one question that still echoes. Is it worth it? Facing the shadow, diving into the abyss, exposing the wounds, all this leads to a breaking point. A moment when you realize that you either face the pain of transformation or continue to be a slave to the pain of repetition. In the next and final part, we'll go to that breaking point. There, you will understand why the only real way out is exactly what you've been avoiding your entire life. You spent your life trying to be someone others would approve of. You wore the mask of the good, the strong, the balanced. You tried to fit into what was expected, hide what was shameful, bury what was ugly. But the more you tried to escape your shadow, the stronger it became. It became a part of your actions, your fears, your silent decisions. And now, maybe you're starting to realize that everything you thought was bad luck, sabotage, fate, was just you being driven by parts of yourself that you refuse to see. Do you want to be free? Then look at what you avoid most within yourself, because that is where the portal lies, the key. The shadow is not the end. It is the crossing. It is the fertile ground where true freedom is born. Not the superficial freedom of doing what you want, but the inner freedom of not being a slave to unconscious impulses, automatic patterns, and repetitions you don't even know the origin of. When you integrate your shadow, something changes forever. You stop sabotaging yourself. You stop blaming the world. You stop living in fear of yourself. Because now, there's nothing left to hide. You see yourself in full light and darkness, fragility and power. And when you see yourself in full, no one can control you anymore. Not your history, not your pain, not your traumas, not your mask. But be careful. This is not a destination. It is ongoing work. The shadow is alive, and it returns, tests, tries to catch you off guard. That's why the path of awareness never ends. You need to be vigilant. Observe. Take care of your psyche as one would care for a temple. Because if you let your guard down, it will once again take control of your life, and you will once again call it bad luck, failure, fate. So,